So let's talk about your dating selections.
I have since, very, very picky. I dated a bit after him, and then in the last 3 years since I moved here, though, I don't spend time with people who fuck with my peace.
Before we start today's show, please visit the sponsors, affiliates, and friends of the Stagecoach. The Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast, hosted by Rob Morris, brings you recent examples of armed civilians protecting themselves and who they love. The show helps you determine if people were lucky or trained, maybe both. Self-Defense Gun Stories is on all of your favorite podcast outlets. TheGunFood.com has an extensive network of partners to connect you with your guns, ammunition, and firearm training. The Gun Food only sells ammo that they trust. Use RSWC as a discount code and save 5.56% on your order at thegunfood.com. PowerTac flashlights have combined premium craftsmanship, American ingenuity, and cutting-edge technology, creating a highly dependable tool that you can trust your life with. Go to powertac.com/RSWC and save 15% on your order. That's powertac.com/RSWC. Saber Pepper Spray has been making grown men cry since 1975. Find the link in the show description and help get the Stagecoach across America with every Saber Red purchase you make.
Shotgun with Charlie.
Riding shotgun refers to the practice of sitting next to the driver in a moving vehicle. The term riding shotgun came around after the time of the Stagecoach, when somebody used to sit next to the driver holding a shotgun, in case they ran into bandits. My name is Charlie Cook, and I drive a lot. I like to talk to people while I'm driving, so I interview people in my car while I'm driving. Welcome to Riding Shotgun with Charlie.
All right, before we start this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie, if you are new to the YouTube channel, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the notification bell so you'll get notified when new shows come out. If you're listening to the podcast, please make sure you subscribe to that as well so you get new shows when they come out. And if you enjoy the show, which I think you will, you need to share it with a friend, because that is how we get the Stagecoach across America. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Today we are coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. It is so hot, I think I'm freaking melting. I have with me Sarah Riggle from Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm?
Yes,
correct. Oh my God. I've been studying it all day. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to. I am very happy to have people on the show. We're here at the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Phoenix, and it is hot as the dickens here.
Very.
Holy moly, why do people live here?
You know what? There's a lot to do in a small area. The Phoenix Valley is very big, and you can get almost anywhere very quickly, and we like guns here for the most part. That was one of the big deciding factors for my move.
that is a big draw, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is.
It does seem like a better free America.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Arizona was the second permitless carrier. We call it permitless or constitutional carry state.
Mm-hmm.
So that is pretty cool.
Absolutely. So, I remember, I think it was my first week that I had moved here. I went into a Big Lots that was like right by my house, and I just look over and this like just random chick that you would never imagine. It's just open carrying right there. And I'm like, this is fantastic. And nobody bats an eye at it out here. And I'm like, that's great, especially in such a city.
Right.
That was my thing. I never thought I would find myself living in the fifth largest city in the country,
mm-hmm.
or metro area, and now I am. This was probably the only one I would consider.
So years ago, I spent my youth playing in a Motown disco funk band.
Okay.
And one of the guys in the band was this little Jamaican dude that played tenor saxophone. And he liked to say he was in the center on political issues. I called him a wicked lefty. He called me a radical gun nut. And I said, well, if you can be a centerist, then I too can be a centerist. He came out to Arizona with his wife on a trip, and he said to me, hey, Charlie, you should move out to Arizona. Those are all gun people out there. People are just walking around carrying guns. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool, Maman. How come we can't do it here in Massachusetts? Well, I would never want to live someplace where people are carrying a bunch of guns. I'm like, the people that get guns pass background checks, and they're not criminals. So what's the big deal if they're open carrying? Oh, I wouldn't want to live there. And I'm like, you're right. Wacko. So, to cutting to the chase, we got to this point where we had an argument about background checks and having to do universal background checks. And he's like, oh, you should do a background check on people. And I said, have you done a background check? He's like, no, I've had the same job for 20 years. Why do I need a background check? I'm like, well, you're going to have to prove you're not a criminal. Otherwise, if you don't pass a background check and you haven't passed a background check, you could be a criminal. And he said it made him feel bad that I was on him because he hadn't passed a background check. And I said, Carl, you could be a criminal. And I hung up on him, and we didn't talk for 6 years, maybe.
Okay, well, you talked again, though.
Well, yeah, I didn't stop talking, but we did talk again. We did talk again. We were going to get together to do some sort of memorial gig, and we get together, and how you doing? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just fine, just living my little life. They're like, what do you do? I'm like, I drive around the country interviewing people that talk about gun stuff. They're like, what? Yeah, that's what I do now.
Absolutely. Life comes full circle sometimes in weird ways. But what I will say about what you brought up, though, is too many people, typically in the anti-gun community, don't recognize how hard it actually is to pass a background check. And or I can't tell you, I mean, I work at a law firm, yes, but I'm not an attorney. I work in the sales and marketing department for our attorneys on retainer program. But we get a lot of calls from people who were trying to buy a gun for the first time, finding out that they're a prohibited possessor and they had no idea.
How? How do you become a prohibited person?
Something random happened years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago sometimes, even just some sort of minor misdemeanor, non-violent sometimes even, and depending on what it is, what the law is, there are sometimes where you end up being a prohibited possessor. You never even try to purchase a gun in all that time. The times have changed. People are more concerned about their safety these days, and they try to make an effort to purchase the means to defend themselves and discover, oh my gosh, I can't even buy a gun to defend myself right now. And now they're calling criminal defense law firms trying to figure out, how do I get my rights restored?
How do I do this?
I didn't even know I lost them.
That's the crazy part for me, is that somehow a misdemeanor and not paying a fine or some nonsense ends up making you a prohibited person. That is completely nuts to
absolutely
me.
And then there are other situations as well where, if you're ever involuntarily committed for any reason, for mental health reasons, there's a likelihood that you may never be able to purchase a firearm after that. And it's, from my understanding, very difficult to get around that if there's been an involuntary time where you've been committed.
That's crazy.
It is. It really is. And it's a part of, I feel, the stigma around firearms ownership and getting the mental health assistance that people need.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've all gone through tough times. I have no qualms about saying this on the show. When I was going through my divorce, which before it was a divorce, it was a bad marriage, I ended up giving my guns away 3 different times to people.
Okay.
And it was not that I gave them away, but I had a friend of mine and said, hey, listen, you know what, man? Things are getting a little crazy and a little out of hand over here. I don't want something stupid to happen. I want you to hold on to my guns. I'm going to put them in gun cases. I'm going to lock them up. I'm going to keep the keys. You keep the guns. You don't have access to them without me. I don't have access to them without you. And I did that. I ended up doing that 3 times when I was going through my divorce.
Well, you know what? That's a great thing to bring up as well, because there are so many opportunities, especially with a divorce, or if there's kids involved, or even adoption processes and stuff, where it's really beneficial and helpful to get the guns out of the house in some scenarios. If you're not trusting the people who are in the house with you, not everybody has a friend like yours, though. Right? And so there's luckily other organizations now starting to come about, like Hold My Guns, if you had a chance to meet with them at all over the weekend. And so it's great to see more responsible gun owners getting involved with how to help other responsible gun owners when they're in need.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have had Sarah Joy Albrecht on my show from holdmyguns.org.
Okay, yeah.
And she's a great gal. She's got a great group and they're doing awesome things. And I've also had Michael Sedini from Walk the Talk America.
Okay.
Which they have, if you go to Walk, I'm not sure what the website is, but I'll put a link here. Walk the Talk America has free and anonymous healthcare screenings, which are really cool. So you can determine if you need some help, if you need to talk to someone, if all that kind of stuff. Which is really cool.
That's awesome, because it gets to be a little daunting sometimes trying to go through, I guess, normal mental health and doctors.
I think what they call it is life. Sometimes it's hard to get through life.
It absolutely is, and people need to have resources to be able to address any issues within their mental health, because at the end of the day, there's that age-old saying of hurt people hurt people. And I am a big proponent for that. If people aren't taking the time to get the help that they need, especially if they're in a mental health crisis, or maybe they just haven't learned the appropriate coping mechanisms for life and everything, and they just don't have the emotional intelligence or maturity at this point in their life to handle whatever they're going through, but they're being discouraged from getting the help that they need. And then that's when very, very unhealthy dynamics come about, and when you have people who are taking their pain out on others.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard that before, but that's good.
Really?
Hurt people hurt people.
You've never heard hurt people hurt people?
Oh my gosh. I've heard it, but
well,
maybe it never sunk in.
Maybe. That's okay. But you know it now, right? And I really do believe in that, because I personally have experienced it, as I'm sure many others have. But when you can't figure out how to cope with your own pain, there's a lot of times when you feel like you're justified in causing pain for other people.
Sure. Because sometimes it's the only way that you know how to respond to things, right?
Exactly. And it may be the only example you've ever had in your life, depending on how you grew up and were raised as well.
Absolutely.
Too many people don't have healthy examples of, relationships, communication, friendships, and things like that.
Definitely. All right. Let's talk about you and how you got on this path of being a gun gal.
Oh.
So you were telling me that you lived in Pennsylvania for a while, and then you moved to Phoenix with a friend.
Yes, correct. So
why'd you pick someplace so hot?
It was her choice, not mine. She was going to school here, and that was my best friend. And she was like, "Look, I'm moving to Phoenix. I'm going to grad school. We've talked about where you're at in your life right now. You don't really have anything keeping you here. You don't, you're kind of stagnant right now." I was in the restaurant industry at that time, and the only option that I thought that I had in front of me professionally was going to be getting into management in a restaurant, and I knew I would be miserable doing that. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? When else are you going to get the opportunity to move across the country with your best friend? So I took that, and then immediately started getting more involved in some activism and gun rights related things, and then just a totally different career choice from there too. Right. Jumped ship from the restaurants, went into sales and marketing, real estate at first, and then now I'm at law firms.
Unbelievable.
It's been a wild ride.
Marketing seems like one of these things that if you know how to do it, you can do it. Like you can work in any field. It's one of those things that when I was getting ready to come out of high school, I had originally planned to go to school for marketing with a minor in graphic design. Life happened. I was convinced to not go do that, and then got into the restaurant industry, and 10 years later I move out here, start getting involved, and now I'm working in sales and marketing, right kind of in/adjacent to the gun industry, which is one of my other passions. So life really does come full circle sometimes. It's funny how things fall into place.
Absolutely. It definitely is.
All right, so what made you become a gun gal?
Well, I had always liked firearms, but never had a lot of opportunities with them when I was a minor, right, before I turned 18. And I had shotguns before, and I had been hunting a little bit when I was in like middle school and early high school and stuff with some family, but never really had an opportunity to like dive into it. And my mom was definitely not a fan.
Right.
And then I had been in a relationship with someone for a very long time where we kind of grew our love of firearms together. Right.
Cool.
And so it was through a lot of that and just a passion for self-defense and recognizing the world for what it is, and that no one is going to protect me but myself at the end of the day.
This is true.
And I was also in a part of Pennsylvania. I don't know what the exact response time would be if I ever had to call the police, but it's not the best, and I didn't always, as an adult, live in the best areas or neighborhoods either.
Sure.
I definitely remember somebody getting shot outside of my home once in the middle of the night.
What?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember just watching TV with my ex, boyfriend at the time, but watching TV middle of the night, all of a sudden we hear gunshots. We both knew exactly what that was immediately.
Oh my gosh.
We both hit the deck and grab a gun of our own because we're like, what's going on? We peek out the window and we're like, oh, dude across the street comes running out. I'm shot. And other dude takes off down over the hill.
Oh
And pretty sure it was a drug deal gone bad. And
shocking.
Yeah, well,
Shocking.
it was
Wait,
known
so-
to be the trap house in town. So
drug dealers get guns illegally?
you know,
No.
how about that, right? Dude's girlfriend comes running out and she's like, oh, let me call 911 and get an ambulance. And he's like, no, don't do that. Bro, you're shot. Like, you
It's
don't
just-
want medical attention right now?
It's just a flashback.
Well, she comes running over to our house, banging on the door. And we lived in a duplex at the time. We were not answering the door because we knew what was going on.
Yeah. no
So she
kidding.
bangs on the door next to us. They let her in and she goes straight to the bathroom and starts flushing stuff
Oh my god.
and tells them to call 911.
This is like TV.
It really was. My life has had a lot of, is this a real life story kind of
Right.
moments.
Oh my goodness. That's-
Absolutely. But that was an interesting night. And then it took a little while, but you know, when gunshots happen, at least the police try to show up a little quicker.
yeah, that usually would bring them in.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild.
Absolutely. So I definitely, early on in my life, in adult life, realized that firearms are a girl's best friend, honestly.
Yeah. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So, what do you like to carry, if I may?
So I like 9mm, and then for long guns, I do have a little bit of a preference for AKs. ARs are great.
Really?
Every gun serves its purpose,
This is true.
but I
You're kind
really
of a small gal for an AK, aren't
excuse you, but I love the durability and simplicity of them, and I really just like a hardcore kind of gun.
Very
right? I
cool.
love the fact that like you can literally beat it with a mallet or a hammer if you have to, and I actually have done so in the past. So they're very resilient firearms.
That's cool. That's
But don't get me wrong, I do like an AR as well. I have both, right? But no, those are my, I prefer 7.62x39 and 9mm, and then
Very cool.
of course a 12 gauge for shotgun.
All right. So, if I may ask, what is your preferred carry gun?
So I have had my Shield 9 since my 21st birthday.
Very cool.
Love that gun. And then I do also have a Glock 34. So
Okay.
yeah, or I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I misspoke. Not a Glock 34, a Glock 43.
Glock 43. Just
Yes.
A little dyslexic.
Oh my gosh, I'm dyslexic today, and normally I'm not that bad. The second I said it, I was like, that is not right.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, the Glock 43 is a nice little platform.
Mm-hmm.
A small,
Absolutely.
compact little carry gun. Those are awesome.
Absolutely. Now, I
Um,
definitely will need and want something full size. I just have
Yep.
not necessarily had the resources to make that happen yet.
Sure, for sure. I bought a shield. Yeah. Bought a shield.
Shield.
Yes, I bought a shield for a friend of mine. And,
Okay. They're great guns.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Personally, I find them to be the smallest fighting pistol.
Yeah, definitely. That is very cool. Now, how did you get involved with the Lawyers for Freedom?
Attorneys for Freedom
Attorneys
law
for
firm. Yes. So Attorneys for Freedom.
So is this, it sounds like one of these, I don't want to say prepaid, or one of these you tell us.
Sure. So Attorneys for Freedom law firm is a criminal defense, civil defense, and personal injury law firm down in South Chandler, Arizona. And they also have an attorneys on retainer program for responsible gun owners. So in the event you're forced to defend your life and now you need some help defending your freedom, that's exactly what we're there for. And even better, we're provided by a law firm, not an insurance company or backed by an insurance company. So we don't have all of the exclusions that they have in place to deny your coverage. We keep it nice and simple for you, and we just make it 3 qualifiers. As long as you're a member of the program before the incident, you can reasonably argue that you were acting in self-defense or defense of another when we go to court, and now you're facing 1 or more felony charges. We're able to take you all the way through trial with no additional attorney's fees and virtually no other disqualifiers. So all of the other programs, I'm not an attorney, right? But my understanding
Not an attorney.
Not an attorney.
And she doesn't play one on YouTube.
I do not play one anywhere, nor do you want me to. But my understanding of an insurance company is that they can't legally insure a criminal act, right?
Yes, this is something the anti-gun wackos don't get, because they'll like to call it murder insurance. And you can't, like you just said, you can't insure a criminal act. That's nonsense.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if you're aware, right? But I believe it's about 95 to 98% of all criminal charges usually end in some sort of a plea deal where you're admitting guilt to a criminal act. At that point, an insurance company can drop you from coverage and even start asking you to pay them back.
Wow.
And so a lot of people, if they take a plea deal in the criminal trial, they're thinking they're still going to get all of this civil defense and civil liability coverage as well, but they're dropped for that. They're no longer getting that anymore.
That is very interesting. That you're committing, you're admitting to committing a crime.
Absolutely. You're straight up saying, you know what? Yeah, I did commit a crime. And that's when insurance goes, well, you said you committed a crime. We can't legally insure a criminal act.
Right.
So drop them, ask them to pay them back sometimes too, depending on the company.
Wow.
And so there's another side of this too, is that again, they can't insure criminal acts, and depending on the circumstances, there may or may not be a scenario that is arguably, a bad shoot, right? You may think that you did everything right, but split-second decisions in the middle of the night when you're being woken up, it can, or if you're out and about in public, right, making a split-second decision, you never know. And how confident are you that you're going to have done everything the exact right way?
Right.
And the other side of it is, again, the other exclusions, where they may deny you coverage before it ever even gets to that point of, determining whether you take a plea deal or a conviction at trial or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
Things like gun-free zones, things like if you were under the influence, had a few drinks, or were on a medication, or even some companies will even disqualify you if you knew the person who attacked you, or if your self-defense case came out of a domestic violence situation. And I don't know about you, but as a woman, that is extremely concerning.
I'm very concerned about this as a woman myself.
I don't know about you as a man, but as a woman, so sorry.
Right.
But that's very concerning, because imagine being in a situation where maybe your ex is now coming to attack you and you defend your life against them, but some tiny little detail in the circumstances has now caught you some criminal charges. And because you knew him and because you had a pre-existing relationship with him, some of these companies will not cover you even from the beginning at all, before you determine a plea deal or you go to trial, any of it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I got to tell you, this is why I am undateable.
I feel your pain.
That's completely nuts.
It really is. It's insane that people are purchasing what they feel is a service for peace of mind, to be honest. At the end of the day, it's not a product, it's peace of mind that we're providing to people. And with the Attorneys for Freedom and our Attorneys on Retainer program, we don't have any problem covering all of these circumstances that tend to get dropped by the other companies, because we're not insurance, we're not backed by insurance, we're actually a law firm, so we're not beholden to the same restrictions that they have in place.
So let's say someone does, and I'm going to throw the caveat out myself, that every situation is going to be different.
Correct.
But if someone did need the services and they didn't have this plan, how, ballpark, of course, what's the average amount that it would cost someone for these legal services?
Legal services like this, just to even get started, right, may require anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 or even $50,000 in a retainer fee just to get started with an attorney to take on your defense. And those can go up, and that's not even factoring in all of the additional court costs, third-party expenses, like your expert witnesses, investigator fees, if there's a need for DNA testing or other medical testing and such for the case. So there's a lot of heavy fees that most people are not prepared for or anticipating. And too many people feel like they're going to be a part of, someone, if I'm ever involved in a self-defense situation, it's going to be obvious that it was justified in self-defense. Right. But there are so many cases where it's clear to you that it's self-defense,
right.
But someone, whether that's a police officer, a DA, whoever, someone feels that it was arguably a bad shoot.
Right.
And that's why charges get pressed.
Yeah.
And now the facts of the situation are being debated throughout this case, throughout whether you go to a plea deal or a trial. It's all about arguing the facts and what really happened.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
It is.
And people do think it's going to be easy to determine this. And I always tell people that you need to have some sort of insurance to cover your tail. Because I said if the scenario that I often use in the classes I teach in Massachusetts is, we're going to stereotype, but the husband's got the gun, the husband's got a gun license and the gun, and the wife has been shooting, but she doesn't have a license. She has access to his firearms. She ends up using one, and I always tell people, after you buy an attorney a new house to prove that it was justified, then the state's going to come back and slap you with an improper storage fine, because it is very expensive to have these. To have to shell out all this money.
Absolutely. Well, consider this. There's the, 10, 25, 50,000 that you might have to put up front for the retainer, but all of that's going to be billed at a high rate per hour, right? A good criminal defense attorney can cost you upwards of $6.50 an hour or more. And so without some sort of legal protection in place, this could really just flip upside down your entire life. Just even being faced with charges, no matter how they turn out at the end. That's, taking into consideration your fear of losing your freedom, and now also all of this money that you have to pour into trying to maintain that freedom.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of things to consider, and when you're utilizing an insurance-backed company, when it comes to the point of making a decision as to whether or not you want to take a plea deal, do you really want to have that added weight on your shoulders of, if I take this plea deal, even though it might be a smoking plea deal that is the best possible outcome for this case, do I want to take the plea deal and then now possibly have to pay back all of these legal fees?
God.
And so that may even weigh in on your decision-making process as to whether or not you take the plea or go to trial.
Yeah.
And that you should not have that added weight on your shoulders.
Absolutely not.
Not at all.
Absolutely. We're gonna small car. We're good. Woo.
No, you're fine. Absolutely. Sometimes you just gotta make it wait.
You do. How often do people use blinkers out here?
You know what? They're hit or miss,
okay.
Right? I feel like you actually have a decent amount of people who do,
That's good.
Right? But you always have your problem children.
This is definitely true. Sometimes in Massachusetts, using a blinker is showing a sign of weakness.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Right. Well, what I will say is, my town in Pennsylvania, people definitely did not like blinkers there, especially if you were not on a main road. If there was a back road, it's just a stop sign, and nobody cares about a blinker then.
Right. Yeah.
But to be fair, it's not like you're looking around and seeing any other cars in that moment usually either.
Yeah, this is true. I have a very strict U-turn policy. If you can pull off a U-turn and you don't have to cause anyone else to hit the brakes, you got time, you get space, do it. If you don't have that, if I have to stop, I have to hit my brakes. If I have to slow down because you're doing a 17-point turn.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
correct. I'm right there with you. If you cannot make it a smooth 1-point turnaround.
Right.
You just whip a complete UE and you're good. If you have to back up at all, you did not do it right.
There was no time. What kind of cases have you guys had with the company you work for?
So obviously I'm not really allowed to disclose or talk about much, and additionally I don't necessarily work within legal, so I'm not privy to a lot of that information either.
Gotcha.
However, our owner and founder is criminal defense attorney Mark J. Victor. He has been practicing gun-related cases and self-defense cases for the better part of about 25 of his almost 30 years in practice.
Okay.
And so he is quite familiar with this side of the courtroom and for these types of cases. And then with that, my best recommendation for people to get a feel for not only the types of cases that we've handled in the past, but also the outcome of our cases and how our clients have felt about working with us in the past would absolutely be to go check out our Google reviews. Okay. We have no short supply of people who are just shouting our praises from the rooftops for what we've been able to accomplish for them.
Very cool.
And so that would be the best way to get information about that is available to the public, I should say.
So are you here at the Gun Rights Policy conference this weekend because Attorney Victor was speaking?
So unfortunately he was unable to speak this weekend. It just did not work out in the cards for us this year, but you know what? There's always next year. Sure. And so I'm actually out both personally and professionally doing some networking for the firm, but also just getting out, enjoying the conference, learning as much as I possibly can, and meeting with as many people as I can, because while I do work at the firm, I do have some personal goals as well outside of the firm that are, adjacent to all of this too.
Yeah, very cool. I want to say I recognize his name, but I don't know where from.
Okay, Mark Victor?
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So he actually ran for Arizona State Senate, I believe it was, just a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
So that may have been it. And he's been speaking in the gun circuit for, about 25 years now, I believe. And so if you've heard of the Crossroads of the West gun show.
Rings a bell.
Okay, so they travel all over the West, right? Crossroads of the West. And they have a big 3-day event in December every year. And then they, travel around to different areas. They go to Vegas. I think they had previously gone to San Diego, but they had some issues out there before. But with that, Mark is one, I think in Phoenix, if not the entire Crossroads gun show, the only attorney that's been approved to have both a booth and the ability to speak at those shows. So he has been speaking at those shows for quite some time now as well, and other gun community events.
Yeah, it's to me, it's really important to have, if you're going to have an attorney, they have to be a firearm attorney, so they know how guns work. They understand how the gun laws work, how self-defense works, because that's a big one. If you get someone that doesn't know what they're doing, that was interesting. Some guy gets down and kisses the ground.
He may have been praying.
He may have been. It's important to have someone who knows about firearms, so they don't end up saying, well, let's say it was an accidental discharge, or say, plead guilty to shooting someone on accident, and lesser charges and all that kind of stuff. So it's important to have someone who's a firearm, a knowledgeable firearms person, and deals with a lot of firearms cases.
Absolutely. And it's also good to have somebody who actually believes in your freedom as well.
Oh my gosh,
and wants to make sure that you get the best possible outcome and you have the best possible defense in your back pocket, and that you're with a team of people who truly believe in you and fight for you, and they aren't just doing it for a paycheck. Right? Yeah. My understanding is I believe every single one of our attorneys at the firm has to essentially sign some sort of a freedom pledge to basically be like, you know what? No, I truly do believe in your freedom. And if I don't, I can't work here.
Is this service good in every state, or is it just good in Arizona?
I am proud to say that we are nationwide. We cover every single state and Washington, D.C., which includes states like New York, New Jersey, Washington, and others, where they have a lot of restrictions in place that make it difficult, if not possible, to find insurance-backed programs.
Yeah, I've got some good friends that are in Jersey and a lot of Jersey connections, and there's slim pickings for what they have for self-defense.
There are very limited options for them, and even with those limited options, I again, not an attorney and definitely not an attorney in New Jersey, but there are some interesting laws going on now where even with the insurance, like you need the insurance to get the concealed carry, but then they made it illegal to get the insurance, and it's like, what is going on over here?
They're so mixed up.
Oh my gosh, it's like pulling teeth just to be a responsible gun owner.
Right, because you want to do what's right. You want to be able to protect yourself and your family in, you know, not just in life or death situations, and but financially as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and it's nuts. And then when they have these restrictions and make it impossible for you to have this insurance, when they, like I said before, they call it murder insurance. That sets the hair up on my back.
What's funny about them referring to it as the murder insurance is, like you said earlier, you know, and we know that they don't insure the criminal acts. And so if they're catching a murder charge and they actually catch a conviction for that as well, they're not getting any insurance.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just not even a thing. It's not even really possible for them to do things. But, you know, they call self-defense murder as well anyways, so.
Right. It's interesting once you start to get into this, you know, there's a difference between a murder and a homicide and killing and all that kind of thing, which is pretty wild.
It's very interesting to see the way that the anti-gun community finds every little way to skew and twist information and mislead people.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like many people had talked about throughout the conference this weekend, is, you know, the definitions, right? They change the definitions to suit their needs.
Yeah. Right?
You look at, you know, one set of statistics with one definition versus another set of statistics that's supposed to be for the same thing.
Right.
But based on definitions, those numbers are vastly different.
Yeah, we're going to extend a child up to the age of 26.
26. No, listen, I get that the brain technically doesn't really, fully developed until you're 25 or so.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if we're sending kids off to war at 18, I think 18 is not a minor.
Yeah. Definitely not. Definitely not. And the crazy thing, you know, bigger picture stuff is there is a certain political party that wants 16-year-olds to be able to vote. Well, let's see, their brain isn't all the way formed. We know that they're not mature, and you want these people voting?
You want to let them vote, but you don't want to allow them to defend themselves.
Right, to be able to protect themselves. It's complete nonsense.
Meanwhile, you were never a girl in high school, right? But maybe not. I don't know.
No.
But it's high school relationships and all of that are very unhealthy.
Oh
and
gosh.
Friendships and the dynamics, and you can find yourself in a lot of trouble and or a lot of scary situations. And as you're not even allowed to have a knife on you most of the time, right? Like I don't think that you're even allowed to carry a knife as a minor. Are you in any states?
I don't know. I grew up in the Midwest.
Yeah,
and
okay.
A lot of guys would carry a Leatherman.
Okay.
And, you know, Leatherman's a multi-tool that includes having a knife or some sort of a blade on it. So.
Well, I remember being in like middle school, high school, and you better believe I carried a knife in my purse to school because I would sometimes, you know, after school, I might walk to a friend's house or, you know, other times. There was always something that was, you know, you never fully felt safe in a lot of ways. And especially as a young girl, you know, walking down the street and whatnot, I needed a means to defend myself.
Absolutely.
I needed something that I felt like I had as my little, you know, trick up my sleeve. That way, if somebody tried to pick me up, which people have stopped when I was a teenager,
Wow.
and, you know, it felt good knowing that, all right, if they try to grab me, they don't know I have a knife on me, right? I got at least something to help. I have a surprise tool for later.
Right. Yes, the other surprise is all we got sometimes.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So my mom was never a big fan of that either, but.
Well, she doesn't know.
Absolutely. But that goes back to, you know, even when I was not necessarily into firearms, even as a teenager, I had a desire to make sure that I had the means to protect myself in some way or another.
Absolutely.
So it's always kind of, I feel like, been there and ingrained in me a little bit.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like sometimes I look at, I didn't spend time hunting or shooting or anything, but you know, I mean, I always thought guns were kind of cool. Maybe they seemed a little dangerous, but
absolutely.
I do know when I I remember talking to one of the guys I used to play in a band with, and I said, hey, this gun stuff is pretty cool. I think I want to get a gun. And I wanted to carry a snub-nosed 38. He's like,
Okay.
He's like, dude, you want to carry what, a little 38? I'm like, yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
It's like you were thinking about it from the cool sense and not necessarily from like the practical self-defense aspect, right? And I can understand that.
Yeah, there's got to be something that sparks it, that sparks the interest and the desire to
absolutely,
to kick things off and get things going.
And there's always that like one little thing, like a lot of people will, hey, I like the antique stuff, or I like the little revolvers, I think they're cool, or you know what, if it takes a pink gun to get a girl into it, if that's what's going to make her more comfortable, go for it. That's not me, but like but if that's what it takes, great. You do whatever you need to do to help you get to the next step in your involvement with this and in your training and in your comfort level with it.
Absolutely, I dig it. All right, listen, we need to wrap things up here. How can people find Attorneys for Freedom?
Attorneys for Freedom, you can find us at attorneysforfreedom.com, or you can also go to attorneysonretainer.us to learn all about our new protection. So we have a national self-protection plan. Again, it covers you in all 50 states.
Cool.
And that is a pretty smoking deal for you as well. You can get signed up for just a one-time sign-up fee of $100 and $35 a month after that.
Cool. Is it billed by the month or billed by the year?
It is billed by the month, or if you choose to do annual payments, you do get a little bit of a discount on that as well. And it ends up being $357 plus your one-time sign-up fee for your first year, but then just $357 every year after that. We have family plan options as well, though.
That's
so
good.
That if you do a family plan and you pay annually, you're going to be maximizing your discounts.
Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
It's the easiest gig. It really is.
I'm jealous. This should be my gig. I need to make this happen.
If it was hard, I wouldn't be doing this.
That's fair.
All right, listen, we are going to have some links for Sarah and Attorneys for Freedom down below. If you have not joined the Second Amendment Foundation, there's going to be a link for that below as well. They are at saf.org, $150 for a lifetime membership to the Second Amendment Foundation. You can find all of your favorite pro-freedom podcasts at sdrn.us. That's the Self-Defense Radio Network. And obviously, if you made it this far, you need to share the show with your people, because this is how we get the stagecoach across America. We'll see you guys next time.